students. Welcome back to the next session of Foundation of Economics. I hope you all are going through all the theories, whatever I have taught till now, and reading all the related materials related to it. Today we will discuss about markets. I hope this one is market PPT. Okay. We will discuss about market. And we had already done the definition of market excuse me, in our previous session. That is, it is a situation, medium, or platform where buyers and sellers come in contact with each other for buying and selling goods and services at a particular price at a point of time. So here there are two parties. One is a seller. The another is a buyer. There are at least two things for you can say at least a commodity or service for exchange, and it is exchanged not through barter system. It is done through money. So we have price here, and the fourth important component of market definition is time period. So a market for a perishable goods is a short term period, and there are products which has got one day markets, and market for durable product like furniture, cars and all, fridge, white goods. So it has got a long term period markets. Market structure is classified into three parts. So you must have studied this earlier. Market structure is classified into as per area, as per time, and as per competition. As per area, you must have studied during school time that there are local markets, national markets, and international markets. Now, what is a local market? Local market is when a production of a commodity is done and sold in that particular nearby areas. Then it is considered to be a local market. National market. National market is when the production is done and it is sold within the boundary of a country. Within the boundary of a country, then it is called as national market. And when it is there is import and export and it is sold beyond the beyond the two country boundaries, then it is called as international market. The second classification is as per time. A very short run, and long run. So a very short run is just 1 or 2 days market. Short run is where you can make changes in the variable factors only and fixed factors remaining constant. Long run market is a market where fixed and variable, both type of factors you can change and then supply the commodity. Or that the commodity has quite a long-term period that you can produce and supply the commodity, then it is a long-term market. So normally it is durable products which has got long-term markets. Short-term markets could be FMCG products like toothpaste, soap and all. On very short-run markets are vegetables, fruits, fish. These are all very short-term markets. Now, we are not very much interested in as per area. We are more interested in competition. In economics, competition plays a very important role when it comes to market. So let us see as per competition. Market as per competition. Now, competition is between the sellers, suppliers, sellers, producers, firms. There's a competition. But there are different types of competition. Yesterday, I had shown you one slide, the first slide of production and cost, which showed that producer and consumer, they both meet at the market. And when they meet, there is competition among them. Among sellers, there is a competition. So sellers can face any type of competition. And below that, there was a classification showing competitive markets and non-competitive market. So if you just revise it, you will get to know. What are competitive market? Perfect competition is a competitive market. Monopolistic is a competitive market. Oligopoly, duopoly, these are all competitive markets where you will find competition. While monopoly is a non-competitive market. The word mono means one. So there's only one seller. So there's no competition. So the seller is the one. कहते हैं ना वही राजा है मार्केट का. So that's monopoly. Now, competitive markets are perfect competition, monopolistic, oligopoly, duopoly, classified into basically perfect competition and imperfect competition. It is classified into two, that is perfect competition and imperfect competition. Imperfect competition has got monopolistic competition, oligopoly, and duopoly. Monopolistic, oligopoly, and duopoly. Okay. So now let us see how do we classify these markets into what are the features. What are the features will help you to understand that whether this is a perfect competition, a competitive market, whether this is a monopolistic, oligopoly, or duopoly market. Now, perfect competition is more theoretical, but to some extent, I repeat, it does not exist as perfect as you'll find in the case of its features. Features means characteristics. But to some extent, you will definitely find perfect competition in vegetable market, agriculture market, then photocopying business, tea stalls. You'll definitely find perfect competition to some extent. I am not saying fully. Okay. So let us see what are the features of perfect competition. Now, what are the features of perfect competition? Large number of buyers and sellers. Now, when we say large number of buyers and sellers, that means buyers and sellers are unlimited. There are unlimited buyers and sellers. You cannot count the number of sellers. Suppose you are told that in your city, how many buyers and how many sellers are there for photocopying business, or how many shops are there of photocopying? You will find it difficult to give the answer. How many should you say 50, 100,000? How many? So there are large numbers. Similarly, grocery shop, there are large number of grocery shops. Tea stalls, there will be many tea stalls, vegetable vendors, so many. And buyers are in the equal in the are also in large number. I would say equal in numbers. It is in large numbers. Large number means you don't know who's buying what product. Okay. It's like it could be like photocopying. Mostly everybody do some or that other moment they need to photocopy the documents and all. So the numbers can be large. So that is why the first major characteristic or feature of perfect competition is large number of buyers and sellers. The products are homogeneous. Homogeneous means identical, similar products. So if photocopying shop is giving the type of photocopy, the same way B shop is giving C, like that. So all the shops are giving you photocopy. So sometimes what happens when you go to a photocopying shop near schools and colleges, there are many shopkeepers who have photocopying business. Okay. Even a person who has kept cosmetics or has got say stationery or has got even this cold drinks and ice creams has photocopying business shop or a machine in his shop in near the school and colleges. Okay. Now when you say homogeneous, as I said, it is about identical product. So all of them are photocopying. We don't know whose quality is good, whose paper is good. We don't know about it. We just want a photocopy. That's how a consumer sees the market. That's how a consumer is looking at the market. Okay. Now, when all of them are doing the same type of business, then they cannot set their own price. They cannot say that, okay, one A cannot say I'll give it 2 rupees per copy, B cannot say I'll give it at 1 rupee per copy, C cannot say I'll give it at say 2 rupees 50 paise per copy. That's not possible. Now, the reason why it is not possible is that the one who sets a higher price will lose the market. The one who sets the higher price will lose the market. So that is why they will not do that. They will rather prefer that all of them charge same price. So their firm becomes a price taker. Firm is taking the price. Now, again, I repeat, there is a difference between firm and industry. Industry is a group of firms producing same product. Okay, industry is a group of firms producing same product. So all the shopkeepers are one. Each one is a firm. Each one is a firm, and all of them are producing same product. So it becomes a industry of photocopy. Okay, it becomes an industry of photocopy. So then all of them are, if one or two sets a high price, they'll lose the market, and if they set a lower price, then they may go into losses. So all of them are charging a price which is equal, which is same. So they have identical pricing, and this price doesn't come from A, B, C shopkeeper. It comes from the market. मार्केट में ये प्राइस चल रहा है, सो यही प्राइस पे सभी लोग बेचेंगे वो प्रोडक्ट को. सो दैट इज फोटोकॉपी. Suppose tomorrow, if you want to, you feel like that I want to start my shop near a particular college or an institute. I want to start a photocopying business because I find this is a very lucrative business. Then, and already there are photocopying shops around. Then what will happen? That you cannot say that I will charge 1 rupee 50 paise or 2 rupees, because already there are sellers who are selling the photocopy. Each photocopy they are charging at 1 rupee. So you will also have to take that price. So you become a price taker, but you're not taking the price from some other shop. You are taking the price from the market. So market, which is called as industry. So here every firm, every shop is a price taker and not a price maker. Fourth point is free entry and exit. Anybody can start this business. The firm enters the industry, and if a firm is not doing very good in business, the firm can exit from the business anytime. So there is free entry and exit. If you feel like that ice cream business is good, you enter the industry. If you feel photocopying business is good and you start that business, you enter the industry. Now, if you already have a business and you feel that the business is not doing good and I want to just close the business, then you are exiting from the industry. That type of entry and exit. It is an entry of an exit of a firm into an industry. The fifth point is there is perfect knowledge. Now, in this case, in perfect competition, buyers and sellers both have good knowledge about the market, very good knowledge. They are rational. They have perfect knowledge about the market. What the market is, how it functions, what is the price, who are the sellers, what price they are selling. All knowledge both has. Who are the competitors? See, like take an example of yourself. When you go for photocopying in the market, in any place, when you go for photocopying and you know the place well, then what happens if one photocopy shop is very crowded or it's very busy, that person is very busy, then what do? You go to the next shop, because you know there is one more shop around. So like that, there is a perfect substitution, that immediately the customer switches from one commodity, one shop to another. At the same time, the consumer has the knowledge. And if the other person says that, okay, I'm going to charge 2 rupees from you, you will immediately say, no, the previous person was charging 1 rupee, then why are you charging 2 rupees? You will say, I will get it done from that place. So you will not pay for it. So that type of a knowledge a consumer has, and so seller also knows about it. So what the seller does is will never charge you higher price if there are already shops in that particular area. Perfect mobility of factors of production. Now, what is perfect mobility? First of all, you all know very well, the factor of production is land, labor, capital, and organization. Okay. So these factors, like if suppose somebody has got a machine, photocopying machine, okay, which we normally call it as Xerox machine, okay, but it is Xerox is the name of the company. So it is like you have a photocopying machine, okay. Now this machine has you feel that, okay, this particular business is not doing good and I want to sell this machine to some other shop. Okay, so and there is one person also you had in your shop who is doing this photocopying work on regular basis, and you are paying that person salary, so that person becomes a laborer. So now when you sell that particular machinery to some other shop because you want to close down the business, the person who is working with you can also get a job in some other firm, because these types of firms are easily available. They are already existing in the market. Okay, So there is a very smooth flow. ऐसा नहीं है कि like one factor से labor को if doesn't have unemployed हो जाएगा तो उसको काम नहीं मिलेगा. The labor will get work. The labor will get work because this type of firms are already there in the competition. Then the seventh point here is no transport cost. There is no transport cost when you do the pricing. When you do the pricing of one page of photocopy, in that there is no transport cost. There is only cost and revenue aspect in that. There's only cost and revenue. There's nothing like transport. There is no government intervention. Government does not tell the photocopying shops that okay, you set the price at 1 rupee, you cannot set more than that or you cannot set less than that. Government doesn't intervene in perfect competition. I hope these features are clear. And as I had already given the example, vegetable market and agriculture markets are the one which are the examples. You can also give photocopying as one example of perfect competition, as well as tea stalls and all. Where there are large number of buyers and sellers, those are the examples. Then price determination under perfect competition. Price determination under perfect competition, price, quantity, demand, quantity, supply, and equilibrium is given here in the table. And you had done one example of this type. We were doing supply analysis. I can also show you supply analysis. 1 second. In the supply analysis, we had taken such example of equilibrium. When we had taken the example of equilibrium, that time we had done, this was okay, the market demand, market supply, then changes in supply. In the equilibrium, we had taken one example of this type where it was 4 rupees. But now in our present example, it is 10 rupees. If you see our new table of in markets, you will find it is 10 rupees. Here it is 10 rupees. Equilibrium price is 10 rupees. Equilibrium quantity is 400. So when you plot this into a diagram, you will get again a cross. You'll get a cross. That cross will tell you that the equilibrium price is 10 and 4 rupees. 400 is the supply and quantity demanded and supplied. So same thing we had done in equilibrium. So this is nothing but equilibrium. This is how an industry sets its price. So this is market demand. This is market. Quantity demand written as market demand. Quantity supply is market supply. Or you can call it industry supply. Now, 10 rupees is the price set by the industry. Industry is set with the cross, demand and supply cross. So I'll just show you once, just to remind you about the. So you get demand supply cross, and if you put this particular table into a diagram, you get equilibrium point at 10 rupees, and this will be at 400, and this is equilibrium point. That is where the demand and supply intersect. This is how a diagram you will get, okay, if you plot it. So this is considered to be industry. It is called as industry or market. Now, revenue relationship under perfect competition. So now let us see how firm will see the market. Firm means every individual shop. How every individual shop will see the market, like how will they accept the market. For them, industry has set the price at 10. Like in case of photocopying, the industry has, or the market has set the price at 1 rupee. Now, what the shopkeepers are supposed to do? They have to take 1 rupee price. 1 rupee price which is constant. So like that, here it is 10 rupees price which is constant, and only thing which the sellers have to can do is to increase the quantity. They can increase the quantity, so that if they increase the revenues, you know how to calculate revenue. Revenue is calculated as total revenue is calculated. We had done in demand analysis. Total revenue is calculated as price. It is nothing but price multiplied by quantity. It is price multiplied by quantity. This is how you calculate total revenue. So now when you calculate total revenue, it is price multiplied by quantity. So 10 multiplied by 1 is 10, 10 multiplied by 2 is 20, 10 multiplied by 3 is 30, like that it is. Okay. So what is price is constant, quantity increases, so the total revenue of the seller also increases. Total revenue is increasing. So if the seller produces more after 10, if the seller produces 11, 12, 13, 14, like that, then the seller's total revenue will increase like that only. Okay. So now like 1 rupee, one page 1 rupee, 2 page 2 rupees, 3 pages of photocopying 3 rupees, like that they are getting the total revenue. Now, what is marginal revenue? Marginal revenue is the rate of change in total revenue. It is rate of change. We had discussed marginal product yesterday. So, rate of change in total revenue is change in total revenue. Change in total revenue divided by change in quantity. So, here it is 20 minus 10, 20 minus 10 divided by 2 minus 1. 2 minus 1, you will get 10. You will get 10. Okay, like that. If you do another, this is first point. Second one, if you do is 30 minus 20, 30 minus 20 divided by 3 minus 2. 3 minus 2. Now, if you do this, then you will get 10. So, what happens in case of perfect competition, that marginal revenue remains same. Marginal revenue is same. Okay. So when marginal revenue is same, so marginal revenue and average revenue. What is now average revenue? Average revenue will become, say, total average revenue is calculated as total revenue divided by quantity or quantity. Okay, this is how you calculate average revenue. Now, if you want to calculate price, how do you calculate total revenue? Total revenue is price multiplied by quantity. Okay, total revenue is price multiplied by quantity. Can we say, therefore, price is equal to total revenue? Price is equal to total revenue divided by quantity. Can we say it? You can say it, because if we want to find out price, then we will divide total revenue from quantity. So total revenue upon quantity is equal to price. So average revenue upon quantity, average revenue is calculated as total revenue and upon quantity. So these two are same. These two concepts are same. That means in economics, price is also called as average revenue. It is also considered as average revenue. So this is average revenue, this is marginal revenue, this is total revenue. So which you call it as price is average revenue. Marginal revenue is at what rate the total revenue is changing, which is changing at a constant rate. So we said the slope of total revenue is constant. So you will get a straight line. When you draw the total revenue curve, you will get a straight line. This is how the total revenue curve will look like. From zero, there's no revenue. As when you start producing one quantity, you start selling one quantity in the market, your total revenue curve will be upward rising straight line. It will become upward rising straight line, and the marginal revenue is the change in total revenue. This is constant. There is a constant change. So this is how normally we calculate the marginal revenue and derive it. Now, if we try to understand this point from the diagram. Now, this particular diagram explains that how the firm becomes a price taker. How the firm is a price taker. Now, as I said, the industry is setting the price at 10, and a quantity demanded and supplied, that is equilibrium quantity demanded and supplied, is 400. Equilibrium point is E. So in the table, if you plot this table, if you plot this table, you will get the diagram somewhat like this type of a diagram. Okay. So 10 rupees you will get equilibrium, demand and supply will intersect, and 400 will be demand quantity. Now this is the price set by the industry or market. Now what the firm cannot say that no, we will not accept 10 rupees. If you don't want to accept, then you will lose the market. Okay, you will lose the market. If you decrease the price, you will go into losses, and if you increase the price, then you will lose customers. So both ways. So what they will do is they will accept this price. What the firm will, this is firm situation. They will accept the price. So demand equal to average revenue, which is equal to marginal revenue. So that demand is equal to average is equal to marginal. All three will become the same. And if you remember, we had done demand elasticity of demand. In elasticity of demand, what is the option a photocopying business also has? 1 rupee is the price which is fixed. 1 rupee is the price which is fixed. The only the photocopying shop can do is sell as much as quantity as possible. So it can go till infinity. It can go till infinity. Like it can sell infinity product, but it is not possible with cost and revenue curves or cost or revenue constraints. So like that, you have to understand that in which market, what type of competitive market you can set the price, and in what type of competitive market you cannot set the price, and you will have to take the price from the industry. Let us see another competition, and that is monopoly. The word mono means one and the poly means seller. Okay. So the first characteristic of monopoly itself is one seller, many buyers. There are many buyers. Now, monopoly is not allowed in India, USA, these countries. It is illegal. It is considered to be illegal. If any company starts monopoly, then government will intervene into that company's business. So that is why there is no, but brand monopoly is allowed. Brand monopoly, like Sony is a brand monopoly, Pepsi is a brand monopoly, Coke is a brand monopoly. They're brand. Nobody can say that I want to produce a product which has got brand is equal, which brand name is say Sony A, Sony B, like that. You cannot do that. You cannot take, because it is registered. It is registered under copyrights, trademark, and all. Okay. So that is the reason. One seller, many buyers. That is monopoly. The second is there's only one product. There is only one product in the industry. Let me tell you one thing here. In perfect competition, as I said, there are large sellers. Suppose you assume this is industry. This is an industry. I'm drawing an industry. So, okay, this is just hypothetically, and this industry has got many firms, like large number of firms. Okay, there are large number of firms in the industry. Okay, so each one is a firm, one firm. This one is another firm. This one is third firm. Like that, there are so many firms. Okay, this is less, but there are large number. This is perfect competition. This is perfect competition. Now, what happens in case of monopoly? In case of monopoly, there is only one firm in the whole industry. There is only one firm in the whole industry, like this. This is industry. This is industry. There is only one firm. So industry and firm, there is no difference between industry and firm. Industry is firm, firm is industry. That is how it happens. So whatever the pricing the firm does, it accepted. It is the pricing of the industry. Okay. So there is only single product. They are selling only single product. One product sold by that particular. The firm is a price maker. Mono itself means the product does not have any substitutes. The product you buy it or leave it situation. You buy the product or leave the product. You don't have any other option available in monopoly. Firm is a price maker. Firm will set its own price because it has the pride of being the only one seller. There is barrier to entry. Now, this barrier to entry are normally in terms of brand. Nobody can take this brand. Okay, Sony, nobody can take. The one Sony has got this brand registered, nobody can take. Patent. This type of barriers are there. Patent. Some company or firm has got the patent, then nobody can take that patent. Copyrights. Nobody can take this copyright. So it is these days on the basis of brand, patent, copyrights, there is barrier to entry. Okay. Or there could be government regulation. Government can say that regulated by the government. Government can say that, okay, it is only government's ownership or property. It is not, you cannot be shared with anyone like railways. It is run, managed and operated by the government, like that. So government does not allow anybody to enter into railways. Price discrimination is another very important thing which a monopolist does. Now, monopoly, you all must be thinking that monopoly means always doing profits. It is not so. It's not necessary that monopolists will always do profit. Let us take an example, a multiplex. You all must have visited multiplex some or the other time, okay, to watch some movie, nice movie. And these days multiplexes are a place of Saturday, Sunday. People go just to chill out there and all. So in that case, if there's a multiplex, do you think a multiplex is always doing profits? It is not so. If the movie is doing good, people, there is a crowd, then they do good business. And then again, as per the season, as per the movie, their business fluctuates. Okay. So even though in 5 kilometer area or 10 kilometer area there is one multiplex, it is not necessary that the multiplex is always doing profits. Sometimes they are doing loss, sometimes they are doing profits. Okay. Now, so to gain as much as revenue, to gain as much as profit, they do price discrimination. They go for price discrimination. I'll take an example of that price discrimination. The example is, I am giving you the example of multiplex only. Okay, and a multiplex, just assume. I've tried to draw this diagram. Okay, I hope all of you will understand this point very nicely. And suppose this is how you look at a multiplex small screen. Okay, so there are A to H rows. Okay, and each row has got 10 seats. Okay, so now the multiplex fellow, the person sets a ticket price at 200 rupees. Okay, now all seats, anywhere people sit, they'll get 200 rupees. They have to pay 200 rupees. So if the whole hall is, the whole multiplex is occupied, no, not a single seat is vacant, then the multiplex person will get 16,000, because 200 into 80, because in one row there is 10 seats and there are 8 rows. So as there are 8 rows, he'll get a total revenue. Total revenue, if all the seats are sold out, then he'll get 16,000. Okay. Now, this will happen when all the seats get sold out. As I said, it does not happen always. Okay. So what does the multiplex person do? He has this fear. He has this risk that sometimes some of the seats, some of the rows may not get filled. Suppose let us take an example, another example, that he has sold the tickets, but people feel that we don't want to watch by paying 200 rupees sitting very near to the screen. So the last row, that is, you can see the row edge is vacant. So 10 seats are vacant, did not get sold out. Okay. Now in that case, what is the multiplex person earning? Out of 200 into 70 is earning 14,000, which is less than 16,000. I hope this is clear. It is less than 16,000. So the multiplex person is earning 14,000 here. Now, now he has a risk that his revenue has reduced by 2,000 rupees. So he will say, no, this is not working. We will have to find out some other way. So what he does, he sets a price. Now this you must have observed, when if the movie is super heat movie, or if the movie is any type of a movie it is, they also do pricing like this. In the early morning shows, you'll get lesser rate, like 50 rupees, 60 rupees per seat. Afternoon it will increase a bit. In the evenings it will increase still more. Saturday, Sundays there won't be any changes in the ticket prices, will remain all very high. What is the multiplex person doing? Trying to get as much as revenue as possible, because that person doesn't want to get into losses, doesn't want to lose in terms of revenue. Okay, so now I have taken one example which they actually follow, Okay, so the row A and B has got 20 seats. He's selling it at 350 per seat, and so that 20 seats is 7,000 rupees he's earning. If all these gets occupied, then he's earning 7,000 rupees. Then what they do is, some middle 4 or 5 rows, like this is 4 rows I have taken, they are selling at 250 rupees per seat. So for 250 into 40, so that person, the multiplex owner, is earning now something like 10,000 rupees here. And the front 2 seats, people don't like to sit because they feel that it's very near to the screen, but sometimes they have no option. If the movie is super duper heat and all, then they are ready to pay even 150. So he charges 150. Okay, and 20 seats he sells at 150 and makes a profit of 3,000. Now make a total of 7,000, 10,000, 3,000. So he is earning 20,000. So he's earning 20,000, whatever the cost he must have incurred for this movie. Now he's going to run this for in a day, say for example, something like 5 to 8 shows or 10 shows, something like that. Then you can imagine the amount of profit the person must be making, or the revenue the person must be earning. So, anyways, charging same price to all seats, or charging if some of the seats doesn't get away, doesn't get filled, and if he is doing price discrimination, this is called as price discrimination, that fetches him more revenue, more profits. I hope this is clear. You must have seen in case of railways also they do the same. No doubt we feel that हमको AC की facility मिलती है 3 टायर में, 2 टायर में, first class में, but the cost of running the train from one station to another is same for the railways. But railway makes a lot of revenue by selling the tickets to various types of people. So it is a win-win situation for railway as well as the customer. Those customer who can pay higher money will buy 3 tier, 2 tier or first class tickets. Those customers who cannot pay will go in sleeper class or go in a general compartment. Okay. So here people who can pay 350 rupees per ticket for the movie can, but the number of seats are less. Why? Because such people are less. Such customers are less in numbers who can pay higher price. Like elite class people are less in that. So the multiplex person will keep less number of seats there. And the middle class people, higher middle class people are more, so he will keep more rows for that, so he'll and sell at a lesser price, and still lesser price for those who are lower middle class. So like that they do they understand the population of a particular area or a city, and then they do these type of price discrimination, and then only they can fetch more revenue. Okay, if half of the multiplex fills for a movie, then obviously they'll make losses also. So that is why it is not it is not so that a multiplex person always makes profits only. So it can make losses also at times. I hope this particular example is clear to you all. We move to the next is monopolistic competition. Now let us go back. As I said, in monopolistic competition, the number of sellers are many. In perfect competition, you cannot count the sellers, but in monopolistic you can at least count. They are they are less than perfect competition, but they are more than oligopoly. So it could be say 15, 20, like earlier mobile handsets used to be oligopoly like situation. Now mobile handsets are monopolistic. There are so many companies they are producing mobile handsets. Of FMCG products like toothpaste, washing powders, all these are a monopolistic competition. Mostly FMCG, biscuits, they are all a part of monopolistic. So many buyers and sellers, you can count them. How many companies are there? You can count them. Heterogeneous, but each company says that, okay, my biscuit is different than the other. Soap companies, they also say my soap is different, so I'm setting a different price, because they say the products are not identical. The products are unidentical. Heterogeneous means they are unidentical or they are different. So there is a lot of product differentiation. So firm is a price maker. Firm will say that, okay, my biscuit is different or my soap is different than the other competitor soap, then I will set my own price. Free entry and exit. There is free entry. Anybody anyone who feels like starting a business of biscuit or of say soap can start the business anytime and enter into the industry, and he feels that making losses can exit from the industry. So you will find monopolistic is a combination of monopoly and perfect competition. It is a combination of monopoly and perfect competition. But to exist in monopoly market, to sustain a monopoly market, it is very important to do high selling cost. There is high selling cost. High selling cost means advertising expenditure is done tremendously. Now, if you take the price of one product like soap, 70% of the price includes the advertising expenditure, 70-80% sometimes. So advertising cost बहुत ज़्यादा रहता है. बाकी सब होता है जो उसका fixed and variable cost होता है, which is hardly 10-20%. So like that, because they have to do, because they have to always attract the customers by saying that, okay, this is my product and it is better than the competitor's product. If they don't do that, then they'll lose the market, or they'll get vanished from the market. People will forget them. That is the reason. So here each firm will set its price, but the pricing is not done very the pricing is not very different than the way they do in case of monopoly. Okay. Now, oligopoly. This is a very realistic market. Monopolistic and oligopoly. They are very near to each other, but oligopoly is a more strategic market. So, if you see the strategy in automobile, in airways, in DTH connection, or communication like Airtel or Idea and all, you will find that they all are giving communication services, but their packages are different. They give you different facilities and calling in internet and all. So then they are doing strategizing there to attract the customers, to reach out the customers. The word oligo means few, and poly means seller. So there are few sellers, many buyers. Oligo, a word came from Greek letter, oligia. So polia, like this the words were. So few sellers and many buyers. Number of sellers you can count. Suppose take the example of say mobile handset. Sorry, not mobile handsets. Communication industry. You can say there are 7, 8 of them. Automobile, again 7, 8 of them around. Then DTH connection, Tata, Airtel. You have got Dish TV, like that. 5, 6 of them are there. So you can count. So it is like this, that if you make a set. If you are explaining in set theory, it's like this. Not basically set theory. You can count on them. Like there are 5, 7 of them in the industry. This is industry. There are 5, 6 firms in the industry. Like this, it is oligopoly. As I said, monopolistic. I said it is more than oligopoly. So it is more than oligopoly. It will be more in numbers compared to oligopoly. Normally more than 10, 11. And a monopoly, it is one firm in the whole industry. There's only one firm in the whole industry. And in perfect competition, we did was there is large number of firms whom we cannot count. We cannot count them. So there are large number of firms in the industry. Like this it is. So you can differentiate among all these clearly. Then homogeneous. Oligopoly can be homogeneous oligopoly and heterogeneous. If it is homogeneous oligopoly, it is called as pure oligopoly. If it is heterogeneous, it is called as imperfect. So heterogeneity is normally found in case of mobile handsets. Each mobile handset is different in shape, size, color, features. You can say weight and all, size, so many things. Automobile, all two-wheelers are different in its looks, design and all. Airway services which they give, or you can say the type of planes and all. More mobile handsets, as I said, okay. Homogeneous is aluminum is aluminum, steel is steel. There is no only the brand changes, only the brand name changes. It could be Tata Steel, or it could be ArcelorMittal, but steel is steel in terms of products. Okay, so homogeneous and heterogeneous oligopoly can be there. Firms are price searcher. They are price searcher and then price maker. They'll first search the price, who competitor is charging how much of the price, and then accordingly we will set our price. We will not set the price first. We will always try to find out what is our competitor doing. They always depend upon the competitor. That is why there is a lot of interdependency among the seller. If you must have seen Pepsi and Coke. So Pepsi and Coke is basically or duopoly. It is only two sellers. There are only two sellers in case of if in a particular market, if there are only two sellers selling a product, then it is called duopoly. Normally the examples are Pepsi, Coke, or Boeing and Airbus. Okay, so the Coke will always be worried what is Pepsi doing and what strategies they are coming up with, what type of pricing they are doing, what type of products they are going to launch, or they are launching, or what pricing they are doing. They are always worried about that. So there's a lot of interdependency. Now barriers to entry is like the existing firm, the established firms are so well rooted in that particular market that new firms cannot enter. Take the case of Uninor, which entered the market with communication network but could not sustain, because there are already large firms who are big players are there in the market, and it is very difficult to sustain in the market with such big players. Okay, so Uninor was later on sold out to Tata. So like that, it is very difficult to sustain in this market. So barriers to entry is there. This is price rigidity. Like the best example of price rigidity is Pepsi and Coke. That okay, Coke will wait that Pepsi increases the price. Pepsi will wait that Coke will increase the price. Both of them don't increase the price; they'll stick to a particular price. They will do a lot of product differentiation, taste differentiation, size of the product differentiation, color, like that type of differentiations they will do and try to attract the customers. Or they will do a lot of sponsors of crickets and film star and all programs and all, and then they try to attract the customers, but they will never have a price war. They both will never get into a price war, because then both of them will lose, none of them will gain. That is why both will do a lot of expenditure on advertising and all, so the selling cost is very high. That is oligopoly, features of oligopoly. Now this is I'll explain in terms of duopoly. So if you consider these are demand curve or two competitors, say for example, this is of Pepsi and this is of Coke. So if Pepsi increases the price, and functions here, then Coke will not follow. Coke will not follow, because Coke will feel now that okay, if Pepsi is increasing the price, then we will not increase the price, because now people buying Pepsi will now buy Coke. So like that, people will not follow, and then Pepsi will have to only function on its demand curve, and it's this part of the demand curve will get exhausted. But if Pepsi reduces the price, thinking that P2 price they can have, that is P2 price, and their demand will increase to this extent, but now Coke will reduce the price. Coke will reduce the price, and both of them will end up on this part of the demand curve. That is why the higher price they function on this demand curve, the lower price they function on this demand curve. That is why, to avoid these two situations, they will stick to a particular price. There is price stickiness, which is called price rigidity. This is a non-collusive oligopoly situation. Basically, don't get into the theory much. In a duopoly situation or in oligopoly situation, most of the time, what happens is the seller waits for the other seller to increase or decrease the price, and accordingly they will react. That is the basic understanding of oligopoly. Some of the forms of oligopoly are non-collusive oligopoly and collusive. Oligopoly is the most complex market structure, because it has got a lot of strategies, it has got a lot of things inside it and all. So that is the reason. So non-collusive oligopoly, as I explained, Paul Sweezy's Knick demand curve hypothesis. Knick demand curve hypothesis, where both will wait and watch that the other person increases the price, the other competitor increases the price, and accordingly they will react. Or other competitor decreases the price, and accordingly they will react. If there is an increase in price, the other competitor will not follow the increase in price. But if there is a decrease in price, the other competitor will follow the decrease in price, because the other competitor feels that if I don't decrease the price with the competitor, then I will lose the market. Like that it is. So they both decrease the price, and finally the market is distributed among both of them. Now, non-collusive, as we have done, collusive side is more found practically is cartels and price leaderships. There are two types of collusive oligopoly: cartels and price leadership. Now, cartels, the best example of cartel is OPEC. OPEC is the best example of cartel. OPEC is Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. You must have heard about OPEC. OPEC is a trade bloc. It is Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. This is the best example of cartel. Around 80%, I don't have the exact data, 80% of the world oil is supplied by these countries, OPEC countries. There are around 12 to 14 countries. You can just go Google and find out how many countries. I think there are 12 to 14 countries in OPEC. Most of them are Gulf countries. They have a cartel agreement कि हम लोग इतना ऑयल प्रोड्यूस करेंगे और बाहर की दुनिया को इतने प्राइस में इतनी क्वांटिटी बेचेंगे. ये सब इनका एग्रीमेंट में लिखा होता है. So that is called as a cartel agreement. And cartel is not it's not legal in India and US countries. Okay, only in the world the biggest cartel is OPEC. Now there is market sharing cartels. Like market sharing cartels is say for example the companies decide that okay, you are going to sell your oil into these countries, and you are going to sell your oil to the other parts of the world with the countries are there. Like that, that is one type of a market sharing which they do. Okay. So that is market sharing cartels. Okay. And it is there in spare part industries, in automobile industry, the spare part companies do that. But it is not legal, and it is very difficult to prove. And if you observe during Diwali holidays or any other a week, if the long weekend holidays come, all the airlines, they increase the price almost at the same levels. So that is also a type of cartelling which the airlines do, but it is very difficult to prove. So it is very difficult to also find out that which companies. They can say, okay, this is peak period and we have increased the price. So you cannot prove it. Another side of collusive oligopoly is price leadership. So there can be low cost firms, dominant firms, and barometric. Now, low cost firm is the best example I can get. Price leadership through low cost pricing. So that is the best example is Reliance. Once Reliance had come up with its mobile communication network services, if you just search Ek Rupaya Ek Desh, at that time when most of the communication companies were charging 1.5 to 2 rupees per call, Reliance came up with a one ek rupaya ek desh policy. So they reduced the price. The moment they reduce the price, all the firms will have to start reducing the prices. Otherwise, they'll lose the market, and all the whole market, all people will start buying mobile. Same thing happened with Jio. When Jio started giving people at a very low rate the internet connections, then all of them had to give. All the other communication networks had to do the same. So like that, it happens is called as low price leaders. Okay, because they have so much of investment and they have got so much diversified business. One particular business making losses doesn't make much difference to them most of the time. And most of the time, when you are pricing low and you are selling at mass, obviously what China has been doing, so you are obviously you're going to get a lot of revenue. Now, dominant firm. There's one firm. If there are a number of firms are less, then few bigger firms dominate the market. Like Tata Steel dominates the steel market, or ArcelorMittal. They have a little dominance. Like that, there is dominance of the in the steel markets. Similarly, if you take the example of even there is in case of cement industries, also some of the cement firms dominate the market. Or in case of airlines, you will find somehow like Indigo Airlines. It has a dominance in the market in terms of their major market share. It could be in terms of pricing, like that. Another is barometric is normally like there is nothing like that. Somebody is told that you do this or you do that, or you have to follow what pricing we are followed. That type of thing is not there. Here there are small firms, and there is suppose one big firm. Whatever the one big firm does, all the small firms will try and do that. Try and follow that what the bigger firm, the larger firm is doing. So that larger firm becomes a barometer for the smaller firms to set the pricing. Okay, like that it is. So that is barometric pricing. Now we will do a fast revision on the features of these markets. So buyers and sellers, perfect competition, it is large. Monopoly, it is one seller, many buyer, and monopolistic, it is many seller and many buyer. It is many, so only many is written because it's many for both seller and buyer. And oligopoly, it is few sellers. So number of seller is few, but buyers are many. Product feature is, if you are told that how do you distinguish these four markets, then you can just summarize this particular table. And product in case of perfect competition is homogeneous. The best example I had given you is photocopying business. Monopoly, single. Railway is the best example. Okay, monopolistic, it is heterogeneous. The products are different: biscuit, toothpaste, toothbrushes. Okay, oil, various types of oil, to our soaps. These are the best examples of monopolistic. Oligopoly is both. You can have homogeneous as well as heterogeneous. So you can give the example of homogeneous as aluminium, steel, cement, and at the same time heterogeneity, you can give the example of automobile, mobile handsets, DTH connections, all these. And oligopoly, you can give the example of Pepsi, Coke, Airbus and Boeing. So Boeing is mostly having its production and sale from USA, while Airbus has got maximum production and sale from European countries. Okay. So that's how it is. So they are the ones which are dominating the market in terms of buying and selling of airlines, passenger airlines and all. So price here in case of perfect competition, a taker, they take the price from the industry. For monopoly firm, they are maker. Why they are maker? Because there is only one firm in the whole industry. So there is no option. The firm has to make set its own price. Monopolistic is as they say that our product is different than the other competitors' product, so we will set our own price. So they will set their own price. So they are price makers. Oligopoly competitors normally first they search the price, what is the price of the product of other sellers, and then they will set their own price. So first they are price searchers and then they are price makers. Now, entry and exit. In case of entry and exit, there is free entry and exit. In case of perfect competition, you want to start a business, which is already so many people are doing that business, but you want to start your own. You can start that. You are entering the firm. You are entering that particular industry. Your is a firm. Similarly, in monopoly, there is a barrier to entry and exit. In a barrier to entry and exit means there are patents, trade rights, brands, and also nobody can take that brand. You'll have to create your brand, and then if once you create your brand, then you can have a brand monopoly. Monopolistic is free. Anybody can start a grocery shop. Anyone can start say toothpaste industry or a toothbrush industry. Oligopoly is barrier to entry and exit because the existing established firm have a very huge market share. Short run profits, normally perfect competition firms earn in short run any type of profit. It is like this. Some of the firms, if there are large number of firms in perfect competition, if there are large number of firms, all of them are not making profits in short run as well as. So some of them are making profit, some of them are making losses, all of them. Suppose you even ask the photocopying person outside the school or institute, you'll find some will say that, oh, we are making very good profit. These are making profit. All these are making losses, and these are in no profit, no losses, break-even type situation. So their economic profits are not. They are having just nominal economic profits. So this is a case in case of perfect competition in short run. But in long run, what happens? All of them are at the break even. They are at break even. They are getting normal economic profits. Okay, which can cover their cost and some marginal revenue. That much is considered as in long run. Why in long run? Suppose in short run these firms are making profit, seeing that new firms will enter the industry and their profit will get shared with them. And in long run, if they are making losses, they'll exit from the industry and remaining firm will earn profits. Like that, it happens in case of perfect competition and monopolistic. So in monopolistic also, short run, you will find that they are making supernormal normal loss. And in monopoly, as I said, that if there is monopoly, does not mean that you don't earn losses. There are chances if your business is doing good, people like the product. If it's like buy it or leave it, so people will feel, okay, I leave the product, I will buy it later when you reduce the price, or I will see later, like that. So in that case, monopolists can also get into losses. But oligopoly, why here I have not written the reason is it all depends upon what type of oligopoly it is, whether it is cartel, whether it is price leadership, whether it is market sharing or a situation, or whether there is barometric dominance, low cost. Depending upon that, the oligopoly's pricing will be decided. So that is why it depends upon the type of oligopoly. In long run, perfect competition and monopolist, both of them will earn normal profit. These two will earn normal profit. Monopolistic and perfect competition. Reason is of free entry and exit. Free entry and exit. So suppose you get to know that in the class there are two students and they have got a chocolate, say for example a Cadbury bar. Then what you will do is both of them will have a bigger share. Seeing this, all the students will come inside, so they'll share with them. So each one's profit, that is chocolates, will become lesser and lesser. Okay, but if some of them say that we don't like the this particular chocolate, they don't want to eat, then rest of the students' share will increase. Like that, it happens in case of perfect competition and monopoly. Entry and exit will decide the normal profits of the competitors in perfect competition and monopolistic. While in monopoly, if they are making loss in short run small period, if they are making loss, they try to cover it in the long run by making supernormal profits, making changes in economies and economies of scale. Okay, like that they do. And oligopoly, that depends upon the type of oligopoly they have. Okay. So this is where we stop and we complete with the different types of markets. Try and observe when you are reading newspapers, or you come across, or you get to know about some firms. Try to list out for every type of business that how many. It's like how many of these firms are producing this product or providing this type of services. So automatically you will get to know. Try listing like how many DTH companies are there, that is direct to home services companies are there. Then how many TV making companies are there, or how many white goods providing companies like fridge, TV, and washing machine are there. Try and list them out so that you will get to know that who's competing with them. Okay. Now, because in oligopoly, what happened in the past 2 decades after 1991, after 1991, after the economic reforms, there has been a lot of mergers and acquisition. There has been a lot of mergers and acquisition. Why do they do mergers and acquisition? Because they want to reduce the competition. Okay, so that is how Coke and Pepsi have got duopoly in the market. Earlier, there used to be other Indian brands which Coke took over, like and then there are now only two players, and now they are dominating the whole market. So they create a type of oligopoly. They create a type of oligopoly. Monopoly situation. Another thing is like if there are 5 students in the class and all of them say that okay, today we will go for mass bunking, then that is called as cartelling. That is called as cartelling. So they have a cooperation among them, and all of them decide that we will charge one price. If all the competitors decide that we are going to charge one price, then it is called as cartelling, which I said it happens in case of automobile industries spare parts, which happens in case of also airlines. Okay, and you will also find in case of when there is long weekends or holidays coming up, even the bus services people who have the bus services between two cities and all, they also increase the prices. Okay, thank you all of you, and hope you have enjoyed this particular session. We will start with macroeconomics. From this was about all about the microeconomics part and understanding about various types of competition. And here, with this, the demand theory and supply theory is completed. Now we will be starting with macroeconomics like inflation, business cycles, GDP, unemployment, and all, and start making a list of your doubts so that we can clear it. Thank you, all of you, and have a great day. Thank you.